It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. The weather in Michigan is always changing, but these days, it's felt chaotic. This month has been marked by heat advisories, and more recently, wildfire smoke has made Detroit's air quality at times the worst in the world. That's happening in a place where we consistently get terrible grades for air quality. So how is our health impacted by poor air quality? How is it intensifying asthma and allergies? And what does being healthy look like in this moment? To discuss all this, I have Dr. Garen Wolf here. She's an allergy and immunology physician who works in Detroit. Dr. Wolf, welcome back to the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
And we also want to hear from you. How have you been impacted by the poor air quality? You can give us a call, 313-577-1019. Dr. Wolf, I want to start with the person who thinks this isn't about them. No asthma, no allergies. Let's say they're just relatively healthy. What is breathing in this smoky air doing to someone who's never had a lung problem in their life?
Great question. So the smoking produces particles that are identified as PM2.5, which is 2.5 microns, which is smaller than or thinner than a strand of hair. And so those particles can get into the lungs and inflame the lungs. Now, lungs are not the respiratory system is not the only system affected. When your lungs start working harder, what other organs work harder? Your heart works harder. And if your heart works harder, that can result in damage to the heart. That can result in less oxygen because one of the functions of the heart is to bring blood to different regions of the body, which is oxygen, and can also result in brain injury as well, headaches, confusion. So it's just not the lungs that are damaged by these very small particles.
So this has me thinking about a warning issued by the American Heart Association for this region last week, and it pointed to research finding that heavy wildfire smoke raised the risk of sudden cardiac arrest by as much as 70%. And we're talking about a risk specifically in adults ages 35 to 64. What was going through your mind seeing those kinds of numbers?
Well, when you think of, an older population, we think of hearts that over time could be strained in general. The longer we live, the more our body ages. So that makes sense as well. But with the younger generation, what we see is with the combination of pollution and, other particles that are in the air, when we combine that with the wildfires, even younger people, because they've had early exposure, can also be susceptible to damage to their hearts.
So the air quality index has a category called unhealthy for sensitive groups. I mean, we're going to get into those sensitive groups because I realize they comprise a lot of your patients, but that sort of sounds like permission for the rest of us. Today's air quality rating falls under that category. The EPA can't name a level of this that's actually safe to breathe. So my question to you, Dr. Wolf, who's really in the sensitive group?
So the sensitive group would be those who already have compromised lungs. So we're talking asthma patients, COPD patients, patients with persistent bronchitis, patients with fibrosis of their lungs, which is thickening of their lungs. So that's a sensitive group. But then we also think of people who are older as well. We think of children. Children are deemed sensitive group because their lungs aren't as mature and they're more susceptible to damage. So that sensitive group is not only people with compromised lungs, but we're looking at older individuals and we're looking at the younger children as well.
I realize you're giving me the scientific answer here. I'm wondering, Dr. Wolf, though, if these warnings should expand. If it's not just so-called sensitive groups that should be concerned about the air quality on a day like today, for example.
To be honest, I think everyone should be. Whether you are sensitive in that sensitive group, whether you are, 5 or 6 or children or older adults or those with compromised lungs, all of us can, because over time you have an accumulation of this exposure can lead to damage to the lungs, damage to the heart, damage to the brain. So to be honest, all of us should be on alert regardless of our health condition.
We're going to talk about what that means in a little bit, what it means to protect yourself right now and really be on high alert. But before we do that, I want to go into your exam room now, if we could. When air quality is poor like this, what kinds of consequences are you seeing for your patients with asthma?
So with asthma, I have patients who are well controlled and suddenly they become uncontrolled. So now they are having shortness of breath every day. They're having wheezing, they're coughing. Our guidelines are when you have a rescue inhaler, which is an inhaler you use only when you have flares, it should be less than twice a week. But when we have poor air quality for long periods of time, I have patients using their rescue inhaler every day, and that is not healthy for the lungs to do. So I have a lot of patients who are controlled who now become uncontrolled, or patients who have very mild asthma, barely use their inhaler, now using it more frequently.
Has summer become your busy time as a physician? I mean, are you seeing people exhibiting the same kinds of symptoms now on an annual basis?
I'll be honest with you, these last, I think, 3 or 4 years, allergies have been worse in the country, and now we add the element of the wildfires. So these last 3 years, allergic conjunctivitis, which is allergy of the eyes, has been significant, very hard to treat. And allergies of the nose, allergic rhinitis, also has been difficult to treat, I would say, in the past 3 years. And this is across the country when I speak to my colleagues.
When we think about allergy season, I mean, it seems to be stretching longer and hitting harder. How much of that is climate change? Is warmer, longer growing seasons, meaning more pollen for more of the year?
Significant. So climate change is probably the biggest impetus behind all this. Why? Number one, as you mentioned, we have longer seasons. Why? Because the climate is nice and warm. So that means that we can have more growth of the plants, which means when we have more growth of plants, we have more pollen in the air. Therefore, we have longer seasons. And when you combine the pollen in the air with pollution, you can have these particles that also damage the nose and the lungs.
Doctor, you've studied how kids growing up in food deserts, often the same neighborhoods sitting right next to places like the Marathon Refinery down in the 48217 zip code, end up with weaker lung function before they even start school. So I do want to think a little bit more deeply about who is getting hit hardest on days like this and what you're seeing.
I thought about that demographic of individuals who live near the refinery, and it makes me sad because already the air in that area is very, very poor. We have significantly more asthma in Southwest Detroit, or those who live in that area. We have more severe asthma, and now we add the wildfires. So now their lungs are becoming even more compromised over time, and that does concern me and other allergist immunologists in the city.
And it seems to keep landing on the same Detroit zip codes.
Yes.
What is the answer?
That's a big question.
Yeah, it is.
That's a big question. So when it comes to the refineries in general, we should definitely have more regulation when it comes to how they are managed with releasing certain chemicals in the air. We should also, with the schools that are in that area, we should have HEPA filters, which is the high efficiency particulate air filters in those schools. We should have more air pollution sensors in those schools, the HVAC system, because that's a big question. And so it's hard to address what we can do with the refineries, but maybe how we can control the school environment would help as well, and making sure the children have access to allergists like myself, make sure they have asthma action plans, so when they do get into asthma flares, their teachers, their parents know what to do.
So in this moment, the easiest thing to do is trying to control the indoor air environment.
Yes, exactly.
I want to go to the phones. We have a caller from Huntington Woods. Marie, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, what's on your mind?
So I have a 3-year-old who was stuck inside a daycare last week, whereas usually they go outside for multiple hours a day, and that's his favorite time of the day at school. And my first grader was not able to go outside for summer camp, and her summer camp was abruptly closed Friday all day, which left us scrambling to secure childcare. So other than us having symptoms like watery eyes, runny nose, a cough, I never thought that the air quality would affect childcare and thus cause a burden for parents, including working parents.
Marie, thank you for bringing up that really important point. Dr. Wolf, what should parents be doing to protect their kids when air quality is really bad and there is this kind of disruption that Maria is talking about?
So Maria, thank you so much. I have a 2-year-old whose her favorite word is outside. And so it was very difficult to keep her inside. But that is the smartest thing that we can do, is keep children inside, people with sensitive lungs, compromised lungs inside. But do you know that the indoor air quality can be just as bad as the outdoor air quality? So I would definitely make sure that you have an air purifier. I recommend all my patients have air purifiers that have a HEPA filter, HEPA, that's the highest grade. You want the air purifier in 2 locations. If you have 2 levels in your home, you want one in the bedroom of your child, and you want one in a family room. Make sure that you remove all clothes that enter the home, because you don't want to bring that smoke. You don't want to bring that pollen in the home. So those are just 2 simple ways that we can try and make our indoor air better quality.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Dr. Garen Wolf. She's an allergy and immunology physician at the Detroit Medical Center. We're discussing how the air quality is impacting our health, and we want to hear from you. The number is 313-577-1019. So we've talked a little bit about folks with pre-existing conditions and also with healthy people. If you're someone who is pretty healthy and you're breathing bad air quality, let's say for weeks at a time, what are the cumulative consequences of that?
Yeah, so people will usually have, over time, they could have coughing more regularly, headaches, sometimes confusion. So prolonged exposure can result over time in those type of symptoms.
Doc, what if your exposure is more like several days rather than weeks?
So several days, I still see patients who are coughing, people who have headaches. It's interesting. The parking attendant where I work asked me yesterday, he said, "Can I get headaches from the smoke?" I said, "Yeah, you can." And he's outside, and he has to be outside because he's a parking attendant. But he was exposed for 5-6 days. We're talking the worst day, but then the subsequent days, and he had a really bad headache.
I'm wondering if we can sort of understand, without getting too much into the weeds, what's happening physiologically that causes that headache. I mean, you're breathing in this particulate matter, it gets into your bloodstream, and then what next? Why do we feel a headache and a sore throat and experience this coughing?
Well, it goes back to your heart has to work harder, and you have the oxygen going to your brain, but you may have a little less oxygen going to your brain. And then you start to feel over a period of time like he did. He didn't feel it on the first day because he asked me this yesterday. He felt it over a couple of days. He just started feeling dizzy because he has less oxygen really going to the brain. And his heart is working a lot harder.
Okay, so I want to think about some ways we can protect ourselves when we're not trying to make the air inside of our homes cleaner. Right. I mean, I want to talk about masks because they're not all the same. What kinds of masks should we be using right now when there's increased particulate matter in the air?
Yeah, so the N95 is what I recommended to my patients. That is known to decrease the particles that will enter enter the mask. But also, if you don't have one and you just have a mask, just put it on. I mean, something is better than nothing. I didn't have a N95 last week. I just had masks that I wore in the office, which were just cloth masks. But I used that when I walked outside, and it did help. So if you don't have access to an N95, you can use a surgical mask, one of those blue surgical masks that you can purchase at any drugstore, and then you can use a cloth mask. Anything is better than nothing. You want to be protected the best to your ability.
Whatever you can get your hands on.
Exactly.
But if you're able to, what is going to filter out that finer particulate matter is an N95 or a
K95. Exactly.
Okay. Of course, there is a cost issue here, an access issue here. I mean, When we're talking about a family that can't drop a few $100s, let's say, on an air purifier to try and clean the air in their home, is there a cheaper fix? I mean, I'm thinking about those box fan and furnace filter setups that you can use to clean your home.
Well, I do tell people if they have an air conditioning unit, there are people who have air conditioning units that are in the window or that bring in outdoor air. You do not want those air conditioning units open to the outdoor air because that will bring in the pollution. It will bring in the pollen. So you want to close that, and you want it just to, I hate to say recirculate the indoor air, but you just don't want the outdoor air coming in. And then again, I do recommend taking off clothes, your outdoor clothes, showering before you enter or before you go to bed so you can remove the smoke, you can remove the pollen, making sure that you vacuum, once a week or maybe, every other day in order to reduce the pollen exposure in the home. Please do not smoke in the home. So those are options as well.
Some of the things that you are suggesting, Dr. Wolf, have me thinking back to the COVID-19 pandemic. Mm-hmm. So we've been here before. Mm-hmm. We know what it means to be very fastidious with our hygiene and health. And so what you're saying is that we really do need to slow down and think about the different ways that this smoke is affecting us when we're outside and do everything we can to keep our indoor environment clean.
Yes, exactly.
As a community, what should we be investing in to improve air quality? I mean, you mentioned what schools need to be doing to keep air cleaner. I mean, there's this idea of creating clean air refuges. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so in the city of Detroit specifically, when we had the very, very high temperatures, we had cooling centers. So we had community centers, churches, libraries that provided air conditioning. We also had air centers as well. Those same environments also provided clean air for individuals. So as a community, we should work on providing centers or locations that can provide when we get really bad, meaning when the air quality gets to around 400s, which it was last week.
Yeah.
The air quality index is from 0 to 500. 100 or less is clean air. We were in the 400s last week. So when we have instances like that, we should have community centers that can help the community in times of need.
I realize, Dr. Wolf, you don't run the power grid. You run an exam room. From your side of the stethoscope, if Metro Detroit's air actually got cleaner year over year, what changes for the patient who's sitting in front of you?
Great question. What changes? So less use of an asthma inhaler, being able to engage in activities without depending on an inhaler, not having to cough or wheeze, that would help. But it also helps those with allergies of the eyes, helps the heart. I mean, clean air is just not a lung issue. It helps every organ of the body. And so for my patients, it will improve quality of life. And that's when patients come to me. They're very impacted by quality of life. I can't breathe. I can't enjoy activities with families. I can't smell. And so quality of life would significantly improve.
Dr. Garen Wolf is an allergy and immunology physician at the Detroit Medical Center. Dr. Wolf, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Coming up, the wildfire smoke we've been discussing has an origin, of course. We'll go there with someone who spent 45 years on the other end of it as a wildland firefighter. That's next on the Metro. Stay with us.